family, welcome back to the journey. Welcome to this edition of the Sunday Monday vlog. I'll do a quick spin for the Anatolian Shepherds because I know everybody loves seeing the dogs. They're always asking for them. Got Mickey Mouse right here on the couch next to me. Got Mr. Maximus down there on the floor. Got Chubbs on the floor over there. And Minnie Mouse over there. And then, of course, I'm watching on Patrol Live. It was a windy day today. I think I got dust in my lungs. It's like the coal mining lungs, but from the dust blowing because it's been windy all day. However, welcome to this edition of the Sunday Monday vlog. We've had some decent weather. We had a little bit of rain, just enough rain to keep the grass growing, keep the leaves going. As you saw in the picture for the video for tonight or today, tomorrow, whenever you see this video, that's all the leaves out. Everything's in full bloom. It was just 66, 67 degrees today and high winds. So dust was flying everywhere. Leaves were flying everywhere. But I got out there, moved a bunch of brush, stacking the property lines like normal. Hauled 250 gallons of water over to the animals. And then I got the bag of Ladino white clover seeded because I still had the 50-pound bag of clover I haven't put out yet. So now that we're getting ready to get back to nice weather, I went ahead and put the clover seed out because the next couple nights we're going to be in the upper 30s to the very low 40s. So it's going to be nice and cold for the next several nights. And then we're going to spike, I think, Thursday coming up. We're going to be at 57 or 60 degrees every night thereafter. And then our daytime temperatures are going to go from the mid 60s all the way back up to the low 80s to the mid 80s and continue with the warm weather. Now, next weekend, they're talking about more rain coming in. It's only, I think, 40 or 50% chance of rain. So we'll see if we get that. We're out of our hurricane springtime rains. So we're not getting the heavy days on end rain. We won't get that again until later this summer towards, I think, August, September, we get a little bit. And then into November is when we normally get a bunch of rain as well. So right now it's just these quick little rainstorms that only last like an hour, 2 hours, just soaks the ground real quick and then dries back up and everything can bloom out more grass to cut, more leaves popping out and going from there. So not too much done this week between the couple days of those little rain spurts. And then it's just working. I got all the H braces built for all the posts I was able to do. I had 6 H braces that I built. So the concrete cured for a week. I got them built. I don't have any more. I don't have money right now to buy any more posts. So they're just going to sit there until I have money to buy T-posts. Then I'll string line, run the T-posts, and then hook the fence up, stretch the fence, staple the fence, and be in business for, I think it's five or 600 feet is what it will get me so far. I'm only halfway down the one line, and then it's even longer than 1,000 feet going up to the top of today's Homesteader Lane up to Gregory Lane, and then it's at least, I think, another 1,400 feet from today's Homesteader Lane down to the animal pen. So it's going to be, like I said, January, February is my goal. I'm trying to get there. At this point, I don't even know if I'm going to get there. So this upcoming week, tomorrow, I have my truck going in. The whole front end needs to be rebuilt. All the bushings are bad. The control arm's going to get replaced. Tie rod's going to be replaced. And now I'm getting 4 new tires. That's why I had originally scheduled was tires and alignment last week. But my front end, because I'm at 146,000 miles, hasn't been replaced. It's time to get that replaced, especially living on dirt roads. And the way I drive being rough on vehicles. So that's going to happen. Wasn't expecting this bill. This can be like $2,400 in total between all the parts, the labor, the alignment, $1,000 in tires, a little over $1,000 in tires, and so on and so forth. So it's not going to be a good week, good month going into more credit card debt right now, but it is what it is. Tuesday, I got my VA dental appointment out in Fayetteville, so I'll be in Fayetteville getting the dental taken care of and be seeing how that goes. I have no idea how that's going to work out. I did shut down the Snowball stand. I know some of you were asking, some of the viewers here were asking that live local, why my flags aren't out no more. Why am I closed? So I did close because we got the little bit of rain, but it's more than the rain. We're not passing like 67, 68 degrees every day. So with the colder temperatures, like I said, tomorrow night or night after, we get down to 38 degrees again. So with this cold front that came in, there's no point in having the Snowball stand open when I'm only doing like $4 to $26 a day. That doesn't even cover my electric, the water, and all that stuff here. So I did shut that down, which has given me time to get work done on the homestead. The ticks aren't as bad right now. The humidity isn't bad. And the temperature, anything below about 68 degrees is nice to work out here in Arkansas. Anything over 68 degrees, it starts getting hot. You start sweating, clammy, humidity kicks in. Flies, bugs, ticks, everything else. Anything under 68 degrees is pretty much a cakewalk. Still gets a little bit toasty in the mid 60s, but it's not as bad as anything over 68 degrees. So with the following week coming up, like I said, I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday of next week, we're going to be like 80, 81 to 83 degrees. But there's chance of rain. So I'm not going to open the Snowball stand up yet, because if we have that rain, there's no point in being open, because when it rains, most people don't come out for snowballs. However, I won't be working at the homestead when it's in the 80s, because that's just way too hot for me. But that's pretty much all I got going on. You could see in the picture for this video, the gate that I got put in. Got some lights on the pole where the chain is. I got the chain hooked up for the gate. That's the entrance to today's Homesteader Lane. That will be my driveway to Purdom Lane, and then Purdom Lane down to my driveway that will go up the mountain, and then my house will be up on the mountain. So eventually I'll get there, but making progress little by little. Like I said, I got seed put out, the clover seed. I also had a little bit of grass seed left, so I went ahead, knocked out the last little bit of grass seed I had. I still have a couple bags of purple top turnips. I was thinking about putting them out, but then I decided I'm going to hold off on that until this fall, because I'm going to see where I want to put purple top turnips. As everybody saw when I did it several years ago, they turned out amazing. They're really good to snack on. I never had turnips before growing up that I can remember, but I really liked them. So I am going to do a bunch of purple top turnips later this fall, so that way I can have some going into the winter to snack on, cut them up into like chip carrot type things, real thin disc. They're really good. But that's what I'm going to look at doing with them later. I'm not going to mess with that right now. And that's pretty much it. So that's it on this week. And then for this week's topic is what all homesteaders and preppers need. The number one thing that they need is something that the boomer generation, the boomers, knew about, were smart about, and somehow that knowledge never got passed down to these other generations. And I'm going to jump out there real quick and say about millennials, because I fall into the millennials, born in 87, 1987 for you 2000 and up people, back in the old days. Even though I'm still a kid, I'll never grow up. But 1987 was when I was born, so I fall into millennial. And I will say, and I've said this my whole life, I was born at the wrong time era. I didn't want to be here. But I will say I am very, very glad that I'm a millennial and not any generation after a millennial. Now, millennials get a bad rap, which I know because a lot of them stayed in their parents' basement. A lot of them never went out and worked. A lot of them never went to college or did anything like that, or made anything of their life. A lot of them are still at home. I still know people from high school that are in their 30s now. They're still living with people as roommates or living with family to save up money. Uh, it's just the millennial generation is a lazy generation. However, I shouldn't be in that generation because I'm not the lazy one. I do a homestead. But in all reality, millennials were the very last, how do I say it? Boomeristic type of generation. And what I mean by that is any generation after me, cell phones were out, technology was out. And that's destroyed a lot of what millennials were the last of, going all the way back to boomers and previous generations had. And that was family, and not the technology part. And what I mean in the whole thing about it, hey Chris, not too much. Been working out on the farm. Farm's doing good. All the animals are doing good. I'll do another video later this week. Monday, Tuesday, I'm tied up, but Wednesday, Thursday, I'll get a video out there with animals again. But the millennial generation were the last ones where grandparents and great grandparents would come for holidays. You would have family dinners. You weren't staring at a television. You weren't looking at your phone. You communicated. You came home. You talked about your day. You did family vacations, family trips, family specialty things. And now it's not that way. So every generation after the millennials, once technology hit, because cell phones came out when I was a young teenager. I mean, my dad had one of those big bricks. So it was before I was a teenager. But I got a cell phone. I think I was like 14, maybe 15 years old is when I got my first cell phone. But any generation after me, it's that constant scrolling of TikTok and all the social media, and you go out to dinner with family and everybody's on their phone. You go to a party, everybody's on the phone. Millennials were the last generation that really got that little bit of personal time, where you were about people. You weren't about the technology, you were about people. And it's sad to see all that destroyed and gone away. Same thing with holidays. You know, everybody used to decorate their houses for Christmas. Christmas was a big thing. Now, like I've said, I'm not one for the whole buy a million presents and all that. I don't buy anybody presents. I don't want any presents from anybody. So I don't believe in the commercialism. But I got to enjoy that. Yes, people born in the 90s were last generation before hyper technology. Yep. Well, even in the 90s, I mean, like I said, well, no, I can't say that. If you were born in the 90s, then you were getting all your technology already going into the 2000s, where I was 87. So I was already 3 years old by 90 and then went on. But that's my little side venue on the millennial category, because I've been thinking about that and how, you know, you kind of wish I wanted to be born back in the 1700s anyway. Yep, my MySpace and Facebook really changed things. You got that right, Chris. But yeah, so that's my little side venture. So let's get into the number one thing homesteaders and prepper need. And like I said, this is coming from the boomer generation. And for whatever reason, boomers have not educated us to continue in this pathway. And there's a lot of preppers out there, and a lot of doomsday preppers, and a lot of homesteaders, and a lot of survivalists, and all these different categories that are preparing for whatever it may be. Catastrophe, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, the government collapse, civil chaos, pandemics. You never know. All these different things people prepare for. And what I'm going to tell you is something that most preppers, homesteaders don't tell you, and that is you're wasting your money. Now, I know everybody's like, how are you wasting your money? I'm going to go into that. And the thing that we need is a root cellar. Boomers knew this back in the day. For whatever reason, they didn't educate us to keep building root cellars or having root cellars. And it's making us waste money. We're wasting our money. And what I mean by that is root cellars withstood things. You know, if a tornado came through, the root cellar was down in the ground. It was concrete, big timbers, whatever it was, down in the ground. A tornado never touched the root cellar. Right now, all these preppers, you're buying all these freeze-dried meals, you're buying all this gear, you're putting it in wooden structures, a house, a shed, a garage. Tornado comes through, all your preps are gone. Root cellar for food storage and tornadoes. Yep, and for all your prep gear. So what the boomers should have been teaching us and making us realize that root cellars is a big thing. Now, you don't want a root cellar down in a gully where a flood's going to come in and flood it. That does no good. But think about it. If you're going to be a prepper, if you're going to be a homesteader, if you're going to be a survivalist, so on and so forth, you're going to want a root cellar. That's the number one thing they're not talking about in the prepper community, homesteading community. They always say you need this solar battery charger, or you need this cell phone charger, or this flashlight, or this freeze-dried food. You should not be buying any type of preps whatsoever until you can secure what preps you're going to buy. Because when you're putting it in buildings that, okay, look at Hurricane Katrina, Sandy, all those. Think of how many preppers were down in Louisiana. Hey, DT, how you doing? Hope George is treating you well. But think of all the people in Florida or, California and the wildfires. All these preppers, all these homesteaders, all these survivalists, they bought all this stuff, material stuff, food, and they wasted all their money. Why they waste their money? Because California, their houses burned up, their garages, their sheds burned up. They're gone. If they didn't have a root cellar, guess what? They don't have any preps left. They don't have any freeze-dried food left. So all those thousands and thousands of dollars that they worked hard to make, to spend, to lose, they're back to square one. They're in no better shape. If they had a root cellar and they had all their preps in that root cellar, 9 times out of 10, they probably still had their preps. They still had their freeze-dried food, and all that time they spent, that hard work to make all that money to buy all those preps, they still have those preps. Now, they may have lost their house, their sheds, and everything else, but guess what? They've got food down there. They've got gear down there. They've got other means and gold, silver, alternative barter and trading items, and they didn't lose it. Same thing with Hurricane Katrina down in Louisiana and the East Coast and Florida and everywhere else that has bad weather. Tornadoes in Kansas, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, so on and so forth. If you're putting your preps and things and you do not have a root cellar, now, of course, the new age is the bunkers, doomsday bunkers. Now, of course, yeah, doomsday bunker, it's down in the ground, that's going to survive. But that's the number one thing you need to buy before anything else. Don't go out buy freeze dry food. Don't buy all these canned goods. Don't buy thousands and or hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of stuff to stack up on your shelves in your house, like here, all this stuff stacked up. Because guess what? Tornado comes through, I done lost this all. So that is one thing I've talked about. As soon as I came out here, I've talked on the backside of the cliffs on the homestead. I do plan to do a big root cellar. With Steve here, he's going to help with root cellar. And now we might actually be expanding, making it a bigger root cellar. But this is something everybody needs to be thinking about. Now I'm going to go down another rabbit hole that has to do with homesteaders and preppers. And that is, they're in the civilian mindset. They're not in the strategic mindset. And what I mean by that is, if you go in the military and you work special ops, or you go through SEER school or E&E training, escape and evade for those of you that done it, you know when things go bad, you are not going to be where you're at. So that's another thing that I think that homesteaders and preppers and everything are wasting their money on, is because you're buying all this stuff. You're putting it in these wooden buildings that can get destroyed, and you lose all your preps. But then you have thousands and thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands of pounds of gear and food and everything else. And if you can't be where you are, it's gone. You lost it. So you spent all this money for nothing once again. And what I mean by that is, in the military, you're taught, if you go through E&E and SEER school and stuff like that, that if something happens behind enemy lines or your base or whatever, you're on the run. You're never going to be in a stationary position. And homesteading is a very good thing to do. I'm not going to discredit that. I'm not going to discredit the prepper movement. But homesteading is for today's life. If you don't want to be in the city, if you want nature, if you want animals, clean air, flowers, insects, a healthy way of life, you homestead right now. That's what homesteading is for. Like I've said before, you're not going to make $1 million in homesteading unless you do like microgreens, or, you find a little niche that you can upcharge so much money. But the infrastructure you got to build, you're going to be in debt for decades before you can even break even. Or like me, if you homestead because it's your hobby and you enjoy farming or your animals or things like that, like me, then you're going to be in credit card debt your whole life, because you're just constantly shelling money out for animals that, yeah, I can sell some goats, but selling a goat for $100 that I get once a year, get one baby goat a year. Now, of course, I get a lot more than one baby goat, but just say one baby goat a year, and I'm shelling out $2,500 a month in feed. Am I ever going to make my money back selling the goats? No. Am I going to make money selling I don't have Scottish Highlanders anymore, Zebu for $1,000? No. You wait an entire year for a baby Zebu, you sell it for $1,000, you've done spent, I don't even know how much, over $10,000 or so in feed for the year, more than that. But it's money. It's going out the door. So if you want a healthy lifestyle, if this is your hobby, you want to homestead now. Are you going to be able to homestead in any of those doomsday scenarios? No, probably not. Are you going to be on the run, moving, constantly changing places? Yes, you will. If you have a tornado come through, it takes your house out, your barns out, and all that stuff, and you don't have the insurance, you're out everything. You're starting from scratch. Gone. If you had money to buy the insurance and keep paying the insurance payments and you get insurance, how long is it going to take you to finally get back? Because you know how many other people had insurance and there's only how many contractors and builders and things like that available, let alone, if you got 1,000 people needing a builder, it's going to become scarce. And then we live in today's society now where nobody wants to work, nobody wants to do anything, nobody wants to show up. So the chances of you getting something built again is even slimmer. But yeah, if chaos happens or government collapses, or look at Ukraine overseas, how many of those people had to leave their places? They're no longer living in their houses. They're not walking down their street, going to their grocery store, so on and so forth. So that's where, preppers, homesteaders, they're not thinking clearly because they're buying all this stuff. They're doing the farms and all that. And they don't realize that they think they're preparing for worst case scenario. Well, worst case scenario is they're not going to be there. You put in a garden and the government collapses and there's no grocery stores. Okay, let's go this way, because hunger is the number one killer on this planet. If you look all the way through history, hunger, starvation is the number one thing in history that kills. And that is, you have all the people around you that are starving. There's no grocery stores. And you've got this huge garden, right? You planted this big vegetable garden sitting there. You're telling me nobody's going to come to your property and snatch up your food? And if you sit here and say, oh, I'm going to defend it. Well, if you're a lone wolf, if you're by yourself and a posse of 50 come in, like, what was it? Aladdin, the 50 Thieves or whatever that old cartoon was. But you have a big posse of 50 people come in. They got bolt cutters and stuff like that. They cut your fence. They walk right into your property. One person against 50, you're not going to stand a chance. Look at the most trained Navy SEAL, Delta Force, Rangers, Airborne, so on and so forth. They go in 4-man frog teams, and they can only take on so much. But if there's a group too big, they're outmatched, they're outnumbered. They can't take that much on, and neither are you, especially if you aren't military trained. So what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to move. Now, when you move, you want to be thinking worst case scenario, okay? So it's fall. All your produce is ready for the picking, and the posse of 50 comes in. You've got to run. You got to take off. Whatever you can put on your back is all you have. Because if things are that bad, there's no gas at gas station. You don't have vehicles. And let me tell you this, if you got a vehicle, vehicles make noise. For those of you that haven't done any training, a vehicle driving down the road brings a lot of attention when most people can't drive. Some of the best civilian training you can get, in my opinion, is watching shows like The Walking Dead, and the different, zombie apocalypse movies and stuff like that. And every show they show you, it's very, very hard to stay in one place. You have to constantly move. If you're not constantly moving, people are coming and taking your stuff. If you settle down in an area, a larger group comes in and takes you down. Now, if you have a family and some neighbors and you have your own little group, say you have 20 people. What happens when a group of 100 people come in? You're outnumbered 5-1. You're not going to want to stay in that position. So the best thing you can do right now is homesteading. right now, because society is working. It has not collapsed. Civil unrest has not come through the streets. War is not here. It's overseas right now. Um, if you haven't been affected by wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes, anything like that, and you still have a place to live and place to work out, then you can homestead right now. That's where you're a prepper in a way. Because by homesteading, you're gardening your land right now. If you get into the canning, then you can can your vegetables, but you don't want to can the vegetables, slaughter your animals to package meat, make sausage, make some wheat to mill down for bread and flour and stuff like that, to sit and put it in a wooden structure that can be taken out. That's why, once again, the number one thing you need is a root cellar. And that's what homesteaders had, boomers had way back in the day. Why most people don't have a root cellar is beyond me. Because a house fire happens. I mean, let's talk about simple things. Not even, I mean, tornadoes, hurricanes, they happen all the time. But let's just say regular house stuff. Let's not even go to Mother Nature. Let's just go to accidents that can happen. Okay? Watching Live PD, On Patrol Live. They used to be Live PD before they got shut down over the whole riots thing. Now it's On Patrol Live. It should have stayed Live PD when they came back. But if you watch On Patrol Live, you see how many times a vehicle that's running from the cops goes down these dirt roads, down different side streets, and boom, crashes into a house. Car catches fire, house catches fire. Takes how long to get a fire truck out there to put the fire out? Boom. All your preps are in your house or in your shed, in your garage. It catches fire. Guess what? You done lost everything. If you have a electrical fire in your house, your barn, your shed, your garage, it goes up in smoke. Guess what? All your preps are gone. All your food is gone. All your survival gear is gone. Everybody has plumbing. Most people have plumbing. I won't say everybody. Most people have plumbing. Now, you may not have plumbing in the garage, may not have plumbing in the shed, but most people have plumbing in their house. We all know pipes can burst. Things can go wrong. Well, guess what? Something happens. Boom. Your house gets flooded. Food gets moldy. Clothes and stuff get moldy. If it's your sewage pipe, everything's a total loss. So these are different things where if you have a root cellar and you have your food preps, if you have your gear, if you have your tactical stuff, if you have your self-protection items and things like that in a root cellar, if you have your root cellar built where it's not going to flood and you have it airtight and things, or not airtight, catch up in the replay. Good night. Thank you. Keep working. Good luck. All right, DT, you have a great night and a great week at work, and I'll catch you later. I'll text you later tomorrow when I get my truck back and catch up with you. I've just been down in the woods all day. But if you have a root cellar and you have all your stuff inside the root cellar, as long as it's not in a flood zone, if it is in a flood zone, raise it up some. Put a 4-foot floor in. But if you have it where it's in the ground, it's concrete, rebar, things like that, a tornado is not going to take it. A hurricane's not going to take it. A forest fire coming through, it's not going to affect it. If you take cinder blocks and you run a stick of rebar down every cell and you fill every cell with concrete and then you cover it with a sealant or a membrane and then cover it with dirt, forest fire is going to go right over top of it. It's not going to have any effect on your root cellar. All your stuff's going to be safe there. Now, if you want to go into like the the doomsday prepper, then you can camouflage the doorway of the root cellar. Then nobody knows it's there. You can always do that too. If you want to be more safe and have more OPSEC, operational security, you camouflage the doorway. Nobody sees where a root cellar is. Only you know where the root cellar is. You have a place of safety. Another great thing, like somebody mentioned earlier, was tornado shelter. Your root cellar can work as a tornado shelter. If you're in the middle of dense woods, in the middle of fall, or in the middle of summer during a very dry drought season, and forest fire comes through, I don't know for sure. You might have to have some way of getting other air, but you might be safe in the root cellar for that. It's worth a shot. If fires come in from all directions, you got no other choice. Root cellar is going to be your best case. Tornado comes through, hurricane comes through. Like I said, if you have it at a level, it's not going to flood with hurricanes or tornadoes, torrential downpouring. Then you can go into root cellar and you're safe. You're protected. If things go bad in society and there's a group coming through, if you had the doorway camouflaged, it's a great place to lock yourself in. Nobody sees the doorway. Hopefully they don't find you. Otherwise, you're in a fatal funnel. But, it's an opportunity. It's a chance of survival. Like I said, right now is when you homestead. When things get bad, if they get bad. Now, look, they've been talking about societal collapse since beginning of time. Rome collapsed, Persians collapsed, China collapsed, Japan collapsed. All the societies, they always collapse. It's just a matter of time till the new one collapses. Now, that's another thing a lot of people don't always talk about. So when society collapses, it's not always a societal collapse in the mindset that everything gets turned upside down, because you can have a new form of government, a new form of society move in and fill the vacuum, and you're on a new standard and you continue on. Just like with, the U.S. taking us off the gold standard, they confiscated all the gold. It was illegal to have gold. Everybody said you're going to lose everything. And then they instituted the dollar. Then they've changed the dollar a couple times. And now they're going to go to digital currency. And things just continue. If you look back, when the U.S. started back in the 1700s, we were here before 1776. 1776 was just when we got independence. We were here as Britain and other countries and slaves and everything like that, going all the way back. But in the 1700s to now, look at how many different wars have been on this land and how many different societies have come through in communities and so on and so forth. And we're still here. We're still doing the same thing. That's the thing we don't get taught is the history. All these things happen. It's how you survive. Great Depression happened. Look how many people died from Great Depression. Look how many people survived. Look at how many people died in the Civil War. Look how many people survived. It's all about if you're able to survive whatever threat comes your way. And that's why I said before these different things happen, you homestead now if that's what you want to do, if that's your calling. If you want to be in the city drinking your Starbucks, having a high probability of crime, carjackings, house robberies, break-ins, so on and so forth, go right ahead and do that. I'd rather live out in the country here, enjoy nature, have clean air, my animals, so on and so forth, and be able to enjoy my life than staring at a neighbor that has their boombox going at 1 o'clock in the morning, or this neighbor over here that's tweaking in the window because they forgot to vacuum the front yard, or the neighbor across the street that has a bunch of dogs that they just let the dogs sit in the yard all day barking nonstop, or you got neighbors that make sure their dogs are in the house and don't bark all the time. But that's what we do. We homestead, we do these things now. Get the root cellar now for your preps and stuff like that to help preserve your wealth. It's a way to preserve your wealth. A lot of people don't see that. But root cellar, if your stuff survives a tornado, a hurricane, a wildfire, people stealing, then guess what? You still have your wealth. If you lose all that stuff in one of these different things, then you're back to square one. You spent all this money for nothing. You lost it for nothing. And you're broke. You got to start all over once again. If these different things, Civil War, Great Depression, all these things happen and you got to move, realize you're not going to be in the same position you are now. But if you have a bunch of your preps, you can load up into a box truck, into a trailer, into a pickup truck, into a car, and move it to your new place. It's humans and everything are just like animals. You got to migrate. You got to move around. Most people don't stay in the same spot, or if disaster happens, tornado comes through, hurricane comes through, wipes their house out, most people don't rebuild in that same spot. They normally find a new place to go because they need somewhere to live immediately. You don't have time to sit out on raw land in a tent for the next 2 years waiting for somebody to build your house and build things back up. You normally take the insurance money and you buy a place that's already built and you move in, you're set to go. So if you got to go, like I said, it doesn't have to be a doomsday scenario, but if your preps, your food and everything is stored in your root cellar, you're able to move it with you. If not, it might be blown in the wind, along with the tornado and Dorothy going to Kansas. So that's all I have for this video. I just wanted everybody to think about how the boomers were right. Yep, I said that the boomers were right with the root cellars. However, the boomers were wrong for not pushing that, for not making the next generation continue building root cellars, continue building tornado shelters, doomsday bunkers, whatever you want to call it. But something to protect your assets. You know, everybody puts their money in a bank because they think it's safer than underneath the mattress. That a house fire happens, you lose your money. Somebody breaks in your house, you lose your money. Banks, they can steal from you just as well. But a root cellar, you know, money sitting in a root cellar, I don't see that being a loss unless you leave the money notes laying on a board and then the mice get in there or something and get to it. You want to have it in containers, not plastic, metal, or glass containers. But these are things you should be thinking about. These are things that if you're going to buy preps, no, 7Xs. This millennial is not blaming boomers. I'm giving boomers credit for having root cellars. However, boomers are to blame for not making millennials do as they did. They just let millennials off easy, and we're in this predicament that we're in now. But like I said, before you buy any preps, before you buy thousands of dollars worth of gear, survival gear, build a root cellar. Build a tornado shelter, doomsday prepper, or doomsday bunker, whatever you want to call it. Do that first before you buy all this stuff. And then the only other thing, yep, poor millennials. But guess what? Us millennials going to be the ones taking care of you boomers. My grandfather already knew that because I took care of him. So remember, millennials are here for the boomers. You got to deal with us. So you better be nice to us. I was going to say one more thing. Oh, so if you are, if you want to do something that's really intelligent, that would be what the military teaches you For those of you that haven't been in the military, you won't know this. But when we go out behind enemy lines and things like that, we have our gear. Whatever gear we have is the gear we have to survive. So if an op goes wrong and you can't get your evac, you may be out there for weeks, days, hours, whatever. Sometimes maybe up to a month, going through jungles, deserts, so on and so forth, and you need to survive. Now, what you should be thinking about is if a bad case scenario does happen, tornado, hurricane, or, eventually war or societal collapse, things like that happen, and you have to leave your homestead, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you get the basics to survive. You want a little bit of hooks and line for fishing, help you catch food, a knife, a hatchet, a machete, things like that you can survive as you travel. Look at, like I said, The Walking Dead, these different zombie apocalypse movies or TV shows, movies, so on and so forth, and see what they use, see what they had. Yes, it's Hollywood videos, it's not reality, but you can look and say, hey, that looks like that cut that branch well. That idea that he had to have this, that helped him survive. And by doing that, you can get your own little backpack together with stuff that if you have to go out, you're able to survive. Another thing I would highly recommend, and this be the last thing, is get a book for your area. A book, not a DVD, not a digital thing, a book, hard copy. So that way you can have it if computers go down, if you think EMP and all that stuff's going to happen. Get a book on plant identification for your area and the surrounding area. And the reason I say that is because you might have to go outside of your immediate area to find safety. So you want your area and the surrounding area of edible food, plant identification, stuff like that. There's a lot of plants you can survive on until you can come up with fish or rabbits or squirrels or stuff like that. Plants will give you something until you can get some meat and protein if you're not a vegan or vegetarian. And if you're vegan vegetarian, then you're going to have plenty of food to eat. You'll just be out in the pasture just like the cows. But with that, I hope everybody has a great night. I hope everybody had a great week. I appreciate everybody jumping in and sharing videos and giving thumbs up. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Remember, live happy, live free. That's the only way to be. See you guys later this week.